yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did.
I love the simple fact that after years of attacking the Republicans, the conservatives, the right wing as being racist, sexist, homophobes, fascists, Nazis, right? All of that has backfired profoundly in the face of the left, of the Democrats, right? Now, they are the ones whose brand has been so damaged that people are now abandoning them like rats off of a sinking ship. And of course, ever since the election, many pundits and talking heads have been saying, hey, we don't like the way the Democrats are handling things. We don't like the way they're doing business, and we definitely don't like their messaging. So what we're going to see today is more leftists expressing this exact same sentiment. So before we get to these clips, please like and share on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
So could you see yourself seeing what you see now? And obviously Donald Trump can't run for president again, but if he could, under the current circumstances, could you see yourself voting for him?
Quite possibly. I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss that anymore. I think we're beyond that. He would have to prove a lot, Mark. And I'm not talking about policy now. For a second, allow me to say this. What concerned me about Donald Trump, and the reason I voted against him and voted for Kamala Harris, was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty and fealty to him. And that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. And so I'm looking for both sides to work across the aisle from one another. Having said that, when you see some of the things that he said, if he follows through on some of the things that he has said, it's not just about eradicating inflation, improving the economy, obviously controlling our borders. These are all things that I care about, make no mistake about that. And I certainly would support him in that regard. But it can't be just about fealty to him and loyalty to him. It has to be about getting the job done on behalf of what's in the best interest of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaging in a kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people who are really much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room, yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer. The American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law, we're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, you know what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interest of what it is for America. That is not a crime for an American politician or a commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you? That's what I'm interested in. And if Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Byron Donald, Marco Rubio, or the host of other Republican candidates coming down the pike, that's the kind of message that they're going to put forth, I'm down for it. I'm open-minded enough to make sure that I entertain that from a policy perspective. That's what I want for the American people. That's what I want for this nation.
Okay, first off, I don't think there's any scenario out there where Stephen A. Smith would vote for Donald Trump, much less any other Republican. And the reason why I think this is, listen to his talking points, listen to his critiques of Donald Trump, right? The mean tweets, the loyalty tests, all that stuff is basically the lies the left has been spreading about Donald Trump. I mean, look at RFK Jr., look at Tulsi Gabbard. These people are not loyal to Donald Trump, but he picked them because they came out and supported him and his agenda, which of course has nothing to do with being loyal to Donald Trump personally. They just have coincided colliding interests, all right? And Trump, of course, is going to take advantage of that. But Stephen A. Smith does raise some very good points, right? When you talk about the border, you talk about the economy, you talk about the suffering of the American people, the Democrats had no plan, right? All they want to do is continue writing blank checks to Ukraine, allowing rampant criminality, having a wide open border, right? These are all things the American people are actually hurt by, and everyone was fed up with it. Not to mention, of course, all of the woke garbage, okay? All of the social issues that the Democrats backed that the American people completely and resoundingly rejected, okay? So Stephen A. Smith is recognizing that much, and he actually comes out and says, I am ashamed that I voted for Kamala Harris. And I say, good on you, Stephen, for at least admitting that, because the Democrat Party absolutely has nothing in common anymore with your rank and file American, all right? But of course, Stephen A. Smith isn't the only person to recognize that Kamala Harris's presidency would have been a complete disaster along with her campaign.
And after you survived an assassination, you literally were shot in your head, and had the presence of mind to respond, fight, fight, fight. I mean, that's a political talent. It's undeniable. And also, I never believed that it was about fascism. And for me, that made it difficult for
Kamala Harris said that he was a fascist.
Yeah, well, it's like that's her prerogative. I mean, but it's not a word that I would use, because you put a lot of Democrats, especially in my state, that I know and I happen to love people that are going to vote for Trump, and they are not fascist. And also fascism, that's not a word that regular people, use. That, I think people are going to decide who is the candidate that's going to protect and project, my version of the American way of life. And that's what happened.
I've got to say that John Fetterman has been one of the politicians that has surprised me the most, all right? So even though he is a big old leftist, he's actually been somebody who's willing to sit down and speak with and be open-minded to people who he doesn't necessarily agree with, all right? Not to mention, he's willing to buck his own party, right? To go against the system, which is actually truly impressive. Okay, but that being said, all right, what does he come out and say? Yeah, Kamala Harris calling Donald Trump a fascist doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't make sense to the American people, right? So, of course, he's out there in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania, of course, went for Donald Trump. So he knows personally a whole bunch of Democrats that actually voted for Donald Trump because they saw that Kamala Harris had nothing for them, nothing they wanted. Whereas Donald Trump, of course, he's standing up after being shot and saying, fight, fight, fight. That's the kind of messaging you got from Donald Trump in a dire situation. And of course, that's what got people excited about his presidency, okay? And also, Fetterman points out here that once again, the Democrats had nothing to offer the American people. No message of hope, no way of fixing problems. It was just basically more of the same. Everything is fine. Don't believe your eyes and ears. Go ahead and go along with us for 4 more years, even though you hated the last 4 that we offered you. But of course, as usual, the Democrats have missed the boat on everything, and thank goodness for that.
We saw Elon Musk take kind of a powerful role in his power over the Republican caucus. That surprised me, I guess. Maybe it shouldn't have. Did anything about how he wielded his power surprise you?
Well, many people throughout the Capitol are saying that he has perhaps emerged as the leader of the Republican Party moving forward, and we'll have to see how that plays itself out over the next few weeks, next few months, and next few years. As House Democrats, our position is simple. There are 3 things that we should all be focused on in connection with the American people. First, lowering costs. Second, bigger paychecks for hardworking American taxpayers. And third, securing safer communities. That's going to be our North Star moving forward. And we'll see whether the incoming administration is prepared to join us on behalf of the American people.
So that, of course, is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and he says that moving forward, Democrats are going to be laser focused on lowering taxes, increasing wages, and, of course, making our communities safer. What the heck have you been doing the last 4 years? Because it sure as crap wasn't that. And all of that, of course, is part of the rebranding effort the Democrats are going to try to do in order to get the American people to vote for them, right? Because when they talk about, oh, we have to, of course, lower taxes on the American people, well, they're all for business taxes. They're all for more regulation. And all that does is raise up the cost of everything, right? And they talk about, oh, we want to increase wages. Well, how are you going to do that if you flood this country with millions upon millions of migrants, illegal or not, okay? And of course, lastly, keep keeping the community safe, right? You have been the advocates for defunding the police. You have been the advocates for no cost bail. You are the reason the communities are not safe in the first place. But now, of course, you're going to try to go out there and campaign against every single thing you stood for over the last 8 years. But of course, as I mentioned, they're just simply trying to trick voters. They don't actually believe any of this stuff, because if they did, they would have had Kamala Harris run on that in the last election. But guess what? They didn't. And so now here we are. I hope their brand stays damaged. I hope people do not forget, because all they've done is cause pain and heartache in this country. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.